Our next speaker, who is in integrative medicine, she's Western and Eastern medicine as well. She has a great deal of modalities, which she'll explain. She wants to tell us about it. She wants to answer some of your questions. And without further ado, Dr. Abdool.
Thank you.
Please.
Okay, am I on? I just want to make sure I'm on. Let's see. Yeah. Testing, 1, 2. No. Can you hear me in the back? Yes? Good. Well, hello everyone, and it's good to be here. I am local to Florida. I'm from Tarpon Springs. My name is Dr. Nyree Abdool. I'm an osteopathic medical physician, but most of what I do and who I am is actually a shamanic energy medicine woman. And I was kind of born that way and thought I would go to medical school and learn all these lovely things because I was very much into the sciences and biochemistry and organic chemistry somehow. And I went there and I was very grateful for going there, but what I realized is I could not escape the part of me that always wanted to know what else is going on, right? What's really causing the physical things that they were coming in with. And so that started a really interesting journey for me in South America about 20 years ago with a lot of shamanic teachers and trainers and some very interesting personal journeys. So today I'm going to share a little bit about that, talk about the belly because that's why we're here, but really kind of mold and meld those worlds together to better help us understand how they're actually all one and the same. There really is no separation. And the more we can understand that, the better we can help the people that come to us, and mostly ourselves, because that's really why we're here, okay? So, at our center, we do many different things. Like I said, my background is family medicine. I'm an osteopath, and I love putting my hands on people, especially their heads and their sacrums. So the energetic medicine, again, getting into that and really tying in what is that underlying belief system or life experience that is creating the physical manifestations. So we do many things at the center. This is kind of what my specialty involves. I am an acupuncturist, a homeopath. I do nutrition, lots and lots of allergy elimination, hormonal balancing, IV therapies. I love IV medicine. It is absolutely fascinating to me. I've been doing it for almost 20 years, and I keep adding things to it. When you really understand how to heal the belly by bypassing the belly, amazing things can happen. So for me, the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional aspects must be looked at in order to really create a healthy individual. So to age or not to age? Okay, I have been asking myself this for many years and talking to other physicians about it. Is aging natural? I mean, we all assume it is, right? We're just supposed to get older and get sick and die. But when I really started investigating this, it's not that simple. So if we look at the rest of the animal kingdom and we watch how they do it, in their natural habitats, most animals are born, they grow till they're mature, and then they live a very healthy life, and then one day decide, okay, I'm ready to transition. They lay down, and they make that transition. I don't know how many of you have actually been out in natural environments to see animals, but they're not walking around with tumors and osteoarthritis in their joints. It just doesn't happen. So what's going on with us as a human population that we're experiencing this level of disease in our bodies? So for me, health isn't just being devoid of illness. It's not that simple. It's actually having the ability to adapt, change, heal, survive, but doing it with ease. Because if we're living, we're surviving and adapting, but it's very stressful, that's still not health, okay? So to share a really good example of what I'm referring to, there are some studies that have been done recently with the Chernobyl fallout, the radioactive fallout in the Ukraine. They've been looking at some of the animal kingdom in that area. So there's this little beautiful creature, kind of looks like a hamster. It's called a vole. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can center this. All right, hold on. I have an idea. I'm going to button myself all the way to the top.
Thank you.
I may get a little warm, but that's okay. All right. Perfect. Better? Better. Okay. So these little bowls, okay, from the Chernobyl fallout, they put Geiger counters next to them, and they were just buzzing because they're filled with radioactive material, okay? So they were expecting they would be sick, they would have infertility, maybe cancerous tumors. What they were finding is these animals are thriving. They have no issues. They're reproducing, if not better, okay? So that was a little bit confusing. And then the animals that were eating them, like the wolves, for example, who were higher up on the food chain, were also doing really well. So that wasn't making sense because our human population does not respond like that. What it boils down to is when we are in our natural environment, interacting with the world, with our feet on the ground, without these walls that we appreciate but spend a little too much time in, there is an exchange that happens with us and the world around us, with the earth, with the biochemistry, with the electrons, the atoms, the protons, that really, really allows healing, even if I am filled with radioactive material. So we're not aging the way we're supposed to. So what are these toxins that we're coming into contact with? So a toxin is basically anything that creates a negative impact on the body, okay? It can be something that we ingest, we inhale, or something that just touches our skin. I spend a lot of time focusing on the neurotoxins because the people that come to see me tend to have a lot of neurological disorders from bioaccumulation of these toxins over years. So heavy metals like arsenic, lead, mercury, let me get the pointer, right here, okay? DDT from the soil, all of that gas and those chemicals that we're exposed to create a lot of neurological issues in the body. So how do they actually do that? And these are just 2 or 3 slides for a little bit of background so the rest of this makes sense. Ultimately, disease creates something called free radicals. So what is a free radical? So if you look at an oxygen molecule, okay, which is O2, it has paired electrons around it, this particular one. It has 6 electrons. That's a stable molecule. When it has an unpaired electron, like the superoxide anion, that's right here, it is highly reactive because it wants to be happy. It wants to either get rid of this or gain another one so that it's stable. So these free radicals cause a lot of damage when they exist in this form, okay? Something that we need to understand and know is we are producing free radicals every single day. We need to breathe oxygen to survive. Well, oxygen also has a consequence. It creates redox reactions and oxidative stress in our bodies. So the parts of our bodies that are doing more metabolism and using more oxygen actually has more free radicals, and that is actually our brain. So these free radicals cause damage to cellular membranes, okay? So taking you back to Biology 101, here's a phospholipid bilayer, okay, keeping the outside world away from the inside world so that we can be selective in what we want coming in there. These free radicals come along and they start to break this membrane down. So what happens is things that are not supposed to come in are able to, and then things that should only exist in the intracellular places start to move out. And this creates a process of inflammation, okay? Because we have to clean up some of the damage that's created, and the different cell types that come to those areas are what ultimately create what we call acute inflammation. So inflammation is actually a very healthy thing, and we're always talking about it. I'm sure you're saying this to a lot of your clients. You have inflammation, you have chronic inflammation, systemic inflammation. Acute inflammation is a very healthy thing. Every time I walk, there are all of these subtle processes happening in my bone. There's microfractures on a very small level, and that's healthy because I want to reproduce and, regenerate that bone structure. The problem is when it becomes chronic because those toxins or triggers are not leaving the body. So depending on which organ system it involves, inflammation is just given a different name, and it's a matter of which organ system is your most susceptible. So if it's the heart, it might be cardiac disease, high blood pressure. If it's the kidneys, maybe it's chronic kidney disease, joints, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis. So just as a side note, inflammation doesn't say, I just want to hang out in the heart. If you have chronic inflammation, it's everywhere. Again, it's just where does that balance tip where you actually start experiencing symptomology. So I just wanted to take a moment to mention a lot of what I see in my clinic. So I see everything, and I treat all age groups. From the minute they come out of the womb, I have caught them and treated their heads and their bodies till they're 1 foot out of the door, and I've held their hands as they transition this world. This is what I am seeing the most of right now in my clinic. And it's because of the imbalance, again, between those oxidants and the antioxidants. I am seeing more autism than I mean, it makes me sad. I'm seeing more autism than I ever imagined I would see in my lifetime. In the 80s, we were told if we even saw one autistic kid, it would be a big deal. Now, the number went from 1 in 100,000 to 1 in 45. And my clinic is filled with children who are struggling for life. Allergies, cancer, again, the numbers have, I mean, I can't even put a number on it, to be honest. I'm seeing it in my little ones, in the teenagers. I have multiple 20-year-olds coming in with cancer, you know, and it's a little bit daunting, and I've accepted it, but there are moments when I have to sit back and say, what's really going on, okay? I treat a lot of hypothyroidism, Epstein-Barr and chronic fatigue, pain, Lyme's disease, heavy metal and mold toxicity, and like I mentioned before, the neurological disorders. So while I do see everything, these are probably my top 10. And of all of the things that are on this list, the most challenging to treat is Lyme's disease. It's Lyme's disease. I would so much prefer and have a much higher success rate in treating someone with cancer. Lyme's disease, those microbes have evolved and replicated and changed their DNA to things that we can't even start to imagine. So I just wanted to show this. This was Lyme's disease in the mid-'80s, 1985, okay? More on the eastern border, a little bit on the west coast. 1987, and this is what we're looking at today. It's everywhere in the United States. So how can we talk about oxidative stress without talking about our favorite part of the body, right? The gut. So leaky gut syndrome, something you talk about probably every single day. And in general, it's the same concept of the free radical damage. We have all of these triggers, okay, whether it's an infection, a drug, stress. What it does is disrupt these membranes. We go from normal, tight junctions to leaky junctions where things are coming in that aren't supposed to be there. So what the body's going to say is, I don't recognize you, and I need to build a reaction to get rid of you because you're foreign. You're not in a form that I recognize. So once the body starts building that reaction and starts creating antibodies, we see things like allergies, autoimmune responses. Okay, we have a lot of malabsorption, and then we're going to have interactions with the brain. So that brings me to my most favorite talked about trigger, and that's gluten. Okay, we're always talking about gluten. So gluten is a protein. It's composed of gliadin and glutenin. The one that I'm most interested in is this gliadin, okay? So what this picture here is showing you is tight junctions. See how they look nice and there's no gapping in between? That's what it's supposed to look like. This is what happened after, let's say, a slice of pizza, maybe some pasta, okay? This is what happened to those junctions. You can see all of that space. Does not take a lot. I would say this, you know, my patients always ask me, can I have any? Can I cheat 1 or 2 days? And I usually say, most days you can cheat on something, you know. I'm realistic. This one is a hard one because it creates such a tremendous impact on the way that the gut can function. So these tight junctions become gapped. We have intestinal permeability, and something called the zonulin pathway gets activated, and ultimately it breaks down cell-cell communication. Cell-cell communication is fundamental to understanding health. If our cells cannot communicate, we cannot have health, okay? Cancer can only exist because cells stop talking to one another. So let's just think about it for a moment. What is cancer, okay? Cancer is usually an isolated group of cells, for the most part, that have started to replicate uncontrollably, and they all look the same, and they kind of wall themselves off from the rest of the body because they've lost cell-cell communication. Cancer, I know it has a bad name, I understand, but when I think about cancer, for me, it's a cry for help. Okay, what has happened in that person's body where there's a small portion that feels like it needs to survive and wall itself off? It's lonely, it's looking for help, okay? So how do I evaluate that toxicity? So one of the first things that we do is the live blood cell, dark field microscopy, and we look at all the different things that are floating around in the blood, present and past. Lots and lots of blood work, okay? My blood work is extremely detailed, probably, I don't know, I couldn't even count how many tests there are, but they're necessary. So looking at the major organ systems, vitamin D, iron studies, the thyroid is central. So I will say this to someone, okay? You may go get your labs done and your thyroid numbers come back okay, but you know that you're experiencing thyroid symptoms. You have cold hands and feet, you're lethargic, you're gaining weight. If everything else is in place, I would say to you, you don't have to wait till it's out of place to do something to support your thyroid. And there are natural things that you can do. It does not have to be medications, okay? Amino acids, cortisol, because we want to look at adrenal health with neurotransmitters. Autoimmune profiles, we always look at heavy metals in the body, okay? So without going into too much more detail, our panels are extensive. And I do want to take a moment to mention teeth. And I put it at the bottom of the list, even though for me, it's one of the things that usually goes to the top. There oftentimes, I will not start to treat a patient unless they have removed their amalgams, taken out their root canals, and taken care of any infections, because I will tell you, if that is not done, the healing process takes quadruple the amount of time to happen. The teeth are central to health. So I am multi-dimensional. So to transition into the next part, I'm going to ask us to do a little exercise together. If you want to stand up, please. Get this. I'm sorry? No, that should be okay. Yep. Okay, so we're just going to do a little, let me just give her a second to stand, okay, just a little exercise. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a moment. And just feel your feet on the ground. Okay. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. I'm going to ask you to place your right hand out. So that would be that side, okay. And you're going to rotate as far as you can to the right. And just notice where you land, where your hand is. And come back to center. And then we're going to do the same thing with our left hand. And just rotate as far as you can. Okay. And now I'm going to ask you to close your eyes again. And I want you to imagine or envision your happy place. Someone that makes you happy or a place that makes you happy. And I want you to hold that vision and breathe it in. And then go ahead and open your eyes. And place your right hand out again. And I want you to do the same exercise and rotate. And now notice where you go. Then come back to center. Do the same thing with your left. And rotate. And notice where you go. Okay? So does someone want to tell me what they noticed after their happy thought? Right, you were able to rotate much farther. Most of us should have experienced that. Okay, you can have a seat and get comfy again. So just a 2-minute demonstration, really simple. It's something that you can use, and there's so many layers to this. I just like to start with something that's very easy to see and envision, right? Oh, sorry, I think this is falling. Oh, there we go. I lost the top. Hold on. Okay. So I am multidimensional. Before we get into the digestive system, okay, what just happened is we noticed our level and degree of rotation, which is a musculoskeletal nervous system function, and how that was altered by something that we thought and we felt, and mostly in our heart spaces, because happy thoughts kind of naturally go there. And by doing that, we noticed we could rotate more, okay? So again, one and the same. There is no separation.